Hello and welcome to a special edition of The Right Idea, where we discuss the people, policy, and politics that drive Texas. I'm your host, Brian Phillips. I'm the Chief Communications Officer at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and I'm just flying solo because it is a special edition. As we know, the special session is taking place in Austin right now, and the focus of that special session is school choice, specifically the creation of educational savings accounts. And so we're going to be talking with folks who are coming into town, who are going to be advocating for those things, for more parental choice. And so we're going to be highlighting some of the stories of individuals who are here, so we understand exactly why it is that they support school choice. We'll be talking to folks who work at schools, folks who are parents, and folks who are just advocates of more freedom and more parental empowerment. And so our first guest on the show is I'd like to introduce Brenda Howard from Belton.
Thank you.
Brenda, you have an interesting story. So you're actually not from Texas originally, but you're here now.
That's correct. I came from Arizona and we moved here.
Arizona, they seem to be in the news a little bit about school choice.
They are. They are number one in U.S. News and World Report for having the top 100 in the top 100 high schools.
Excellent.
And they got there because they, 30 years ago, started implementing school choice. Now they have universal school choice, and it worked for my son in Arizona. So when I got to Texas and parents were saying, oh, I need choices, my poor child has this issue or this issue,
right.
I said, oh, no, just go pick the school that fits your child.
Don't work that way here.
No, apparently it doesn't. And so I decided I should get involved.
Well, thank you for doing that. I don't want to lose that for a second, because you have firsthand experience of the implementation and then the gradual progress and growth of school choice in a place like Arizona. And of course, one of the things that they always say is it will destroy or defund the public education system. Are you here to say that, in fact, the public education system has not been destroyed in Arizona?
Absolutely, 100%. The public school system in Arizona is actually better. It has improved, and they are in the top 100. They have the top schools in our nation.
Now, how does it work? I mean, I think a lot of us, there's 32 states have some sort of school choice program. So, and again, that's a majority of the country. But I still think that, especially in states where we don't have school choice, it's still kind of a fuzzy concept of how it works. And so, in August, are you going through spreadsheets and looking for the number one schools, or like how does it work as a parent whenever you get this new empowerment? How does it work whenever you start to decide which school you want your children to go to?
So this is a sad mom moment. I was not a perfect mom, and we were in Arizona, and we moved there because of the military, and we got to a school, and the cool school in our zip code was already filled, which happens.
Okay, sure.
And so we went to the other school that was less than ideal, and it had some gangs, and when I signed up my son, there was graffiti, and I knew this was going to be a challenge for him. He was in school for a week, and he said, please, please, please get me out of here.
Wow.
And that's all I heard. And I said, you have been to the best and the worst schools in our entire nation as an Army brat. So suck it up. I was a sergeant in the Army. You'll be fine. He himself figured out they had school choice. He made an appointment with a principal.
Wow.
He came to me and said, I made it at a time when you are not working. And guess what? I can graduate as a junior.
It sounds like you were an amazing parent to put those kinds of principles and values on them, and that kind of initiative that came from you.
I haven't looked at it from that perspective. I appreciate that you've said that. And in that moment, though, I was tearful because I realized that I had not been listening to my son, and that he did have to do all that on his own. So he did. I said, absolutely.
Well, obviously, I mean, but the point is neither, not only empowering parents, but now empowering students, literally.
Correct, because you can have a student advocate for themselves if you have school choice. So we did go to that school. We did talk to the principal. And I said, how can he graduate as a junior? He said, well, he does need Arizona history. And so he'll have to go for an extra hour a day. So I looked at my son. You have to go for, an extra hour a day. He said, done.
That's amazing. And
I just need to be out of that school. And so the
when
public...
it's easy as that, you just go talk to somebody, you apply for and all of that? Wow.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. All right.
It's Arizona's been at this for 30 years. And so it's a very easy process.
Great.
And ironically, they had less than 1% of students that actually opted for school choice back in the beginning. And even at its height right now, Arizona is still, it's a 6% of students that opt in for school choice.
Okay.
So in Texas, everyone's trembling and the
Right.
public school lobbyists are having little heart attacks.
Right.
And they think, oh no, there'll be this mass exodus. Well, that says more about them and their opinion of the
Right.
public school system.
Right.
Most parents do choose the public school. So we do support the public
So
school.
even after all these years, you still have 94% of kids that are going to the public schools.
That's
and there's
correct.
a couple reasons for that. One is because
correct.
obviously there's not this mass exodus from the public schools, but two, the public schools start to make changes. And we'll talk to a little bit about that. That's why we brought you here, because I want to
Correct.
tell that story. Well, that's great. Well, that's great, I think, for a lot of parents, because it's new and because it's sort of seems procedural and bureaucratic. I think a lot of times, parents can get scared off and say, well,
Correct.
that's not something I have time for or whatever. But it's good to hear that, in the places where they've been doing it for decades, they've got the process down, and
They do.
And Texas can import that. Well, that's great. So I do want to get to your story. So the story, the most recent story, take us through TASB, which is the Texas Association for School Boards, had a conference, or at least was promoting a conference. And did you go to this conference?
I did not.
Okay.
TASB had a conference, and they have it every year.
Okay.
And they discuss their legislative priorities. They talk, and they have training sessions. And then those slides are they're posted, and
Right.
people can go and see what the slides were.
Okay, so you're here now, you're here in Texas, you're following along with all this. You notice that TASB has this conference, and you start looking at some of the slides and kind of what they're telling their school boards that ultimately are going to have to be dealing with potentially school choice legislation.
Correct.
What's
and
that?
so one of the breakout sessions was how to handle the school choice environment, how to have your leaders compete,
Okay.
provide customer service,
Wow.
have your customer choose your school. So they had a
Wow.
breakout session for that. And then as a follow-up, Belton ISD is the ISD that I follow, and the reason I'd gotten interested in education. And Belton ISD had a special session meeting in which briefing all of their school board trustees.
Right.
And the first thing they said was, we will be changing our model to a customer service model from the top down to the bottom person. Every single person in between will now operate in a customer service model. And I just smiled, because here's improvement just at the threat of school choice.
Right.
Wait till we get it.
Right. And so the idea here is just even talking about school choice and giving empowerment
Right.
to the parents themselves. You now have the schools who are already reacting and saying, we need to be more responsive to parents' needs. And that's one of the
Correct.
things that we have argued this entire time. And this is why we have talked about parent empowerment, is because what we found that parents really want is they want transparency.
Right.
They want to know that the curriculum is of a quality that will prepare their children to go to college or to start a career.
Correct.
And if there's things they don't like about the curriculum, there needs to be an opportunity for them to get involved and be treated with respect about having those issues.
Absolutely.
And we've always said, if a school is providing those three things, then there's not really any reason for school choice. They don't need to necessarily have the power. But without that power, without the ability to move their child to the
Correct.
next school, none of those other three things happen. And so what you're saying is you're validating this, at least this email and this conference and this breakout session, I guess, validates the fact that they will become more responsive as a result of school choice. Is that right?
It's already happening. We're seeing it. It's incremental. It's small little chunks. And once school choice passes, it'll have to go full force. And competition is just great. That's what I saw in Arizona. They had to improve their schools. And just so you know, and for information, the school in Arizona that my son went to that was a failing school has improved.
Excellent.
I went back to check. I wanted to see what the scoop was there. And so it's a success story. And Texas is so afraid, and I know change is scary, and I know change is different. And so I understand that, and I empathize with that. but it will improve the schools in Texas. We're number one in economy. We're number one in so many areas. Why aren't we number one in schools?
Well, and that's the thing that the governor is focused on the most, is that we expect to be number one. We've got schools improving and states improving all across, some that compete directly with Texas, places like Florida.
Correct.
As we know, their low-income students are now number one in the country. And so that's something that, is something that we should take as a goal, as a point of pride to try and get to. So what I'm hearing from you is that it doesn't just work in theory, it actually works in practice.
In real life.
Which is something I think that the left oftentimes, that their theories work so well in their heads and then they don't work in practice.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Thank you for sharing your story. We're going to try and meet with a lot more folks on this. A lot of people come bring a different perspective from different sides, not just the policy wonks that talk on and listen to this show. So Brenda, thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Can I just give a shout out to Governor Abbott?
Absolutely,
he has been a hero on this issue for parents, and he has stood strong, and we really, really appreciate that.
Absolutely. This is, he's in this fight for the long haul. He said session after session after session, we're going to keep fighting on this, and we will, because this isn't just, this isn't some, even property tax or some budget issue or something. This is about the future of our state. Correct. This is about our kids, and so it's not hard to conceive that if we don't get it done this round, that parents are going to keep coming back again again and again. And so he has galvanized that support. And is using it to move forward. So again, Brenda, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right. And like I said, we're going to talk with more leaders and school choice folks. So stay with us and we'll be right back.
Welcome to the Sweet Tea Series, a talk show style podcast. I'm Taylor Dawson, joined by Ariana Silva. We are the creatives here at the Texas Public Policy Foundation.
Our guests are everyday women who decided they wanted to be the change they wanted to see, and they're now leaders in our community.
We'll talk all things policy, pop culture, and more through a conservative lens.
And we hope you feel ignited by their stories to step outside of your comfort zone too.
So if you love girl talk or you're just curious about the world of policy, subscribe to the Sweet Tea Series wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, welcome back to The Right Idea. And of course, we are talking to a number of people who are voices around Texas and folks who have different opinions and letting their voice known about school choice and about the importance of this legislation that's going through the special session right now. And our next guest is Richard Vega from Houston. Thank you for being here with us.
Oh, thank you.
I want to get into your story. I'll give a little bit of intro by way that you're a pastor in a local church down there in the Houston area, Pasadena area. And so I'll let you kind of tell the folks kind of what's going on in your community and kind of why you decided to come up here and let your voice known to your members about what you think about school choice.
I think this school choice is very much needed in all communities.
Mm-hmm.
But in my personal life, in my personal community, it's very much needed. We are predominantly a low-income community. Mm-hmm. This really benefits a lot of the minority kids. I'll just say that straight out. My community is predominantly Latino and African-American. Mm-hmm. We have a small population of Asian-American, but I'll tell you, our schools within the vicinity have really suffered a lot because of how our community is. Mm-hmm. A lot of the parents really would like to be able to send their kids to better schools and better education, mm-hmm. And they just don't have the means of the resources there.
And now your church that you're a pastor at, they do have two schools. They have a private school and a charter school. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our church, we have one where I'm at. It's called CT Houston, mm-hmm. and then we have one called CT Pasadena. CT Houston is our largest campus out of all our CT nation, and we have a charter school and a private school, like you said. Mm-hmm. We have currently 750 students enrolled in our charter school and almost 50 students there at our private school. Mm-hmm. At our Pasadena location, we have 350 students enrolled at our charter school.
And your children, do they go to the private schools?
So they did in the past, and they are currently back into public schools.
Okay. And just you had the experience that they need to have, and then they're back in the public schools? Or?
Yeah, so my son, he just a small experience off of that. He was bullied, mm-hmm. and so we made the decision to pull him out and place him into private school, right? Not every parent has that option,
right.
But I was blessed enough to have that option and put him into our private school there at the church. After that, after a couple of years, we decided to go ahead and place him back into public school. Our public school where we're at has the early college program. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So my older kids will graduate with an associate's degree through the public school system.
So let's talk a little bit about the private schools. And so you have about 750 enrolled in, or no, sorry, that was the charter school, about 750 enrolled in that, about 350 in the private schools. Is this, what we're hearing from folks is, well, for the people who already send their kids to private schools, this would just be a subsidy for a bunch of wealthy parents sending their kids to private schools. Tell me a little bit about the families and the parents and the kids that go to these schools.
Yeah, so in our community, if people understand it, it's predominantly Title I all the way around. I'm talking about like 99%, right?
And this is for people who don't know, although we have a lot of, really smart nerds that listen to our show and policy guys. Title I is for like the free lunch programs and things like that. So folks who are definitely, in the lower income brackets.
Correct. And extra funding on the education as far as tutorials and things like that.
Right.
So,
okay.
Our community is it's just one of those tougher communities with lower economic status, and they struggle more.
Yeah.
And so this type of school choice, what's offered through the ESA, benefits our community directly.
Because these are parents. These are parents who are making tremendous sacrifices to afford the tuition. Because there are you see, are there like scholarship programs, or like how do parents make ends meet? Sending their kid to a private school.
Yeah. So just looking at our church, right? So we have the private school and the charter school. Our charter school numbers are really high versus our private school numbers are very low. Why? Because it costs a lot more to do the private school, and our community cannot really afford it. Now, do we have scholarship programs? Absolutely. Do we have a lot of them? No. The reality is we don't. But we try. But at the end of the day, this right here benefits our kids, our community, 100%.
So, and the ESA that's in front of the, that the Senate just voted on the other day, it would have up to $8,000. Would that cover the cost of folks to go to your private school?
Yes. 100%.
And so would you be able to handle the influx of folks who probably would be standing outside the door?
100%. We are already positioning ourselves in being able to handle it. There's a lot of retired teachers. There's a lot of other teachers that are really excited if we're able to move forward and be able to do something.
And this really hits because you live this is targeted at a low income community. One of the criticisms again here is that, well, what about the kids who are left behind? What about the kids who are in those public schools? What do you think? You obviously would care about those kids as well. What do you think happens to those schools and to those individuals? Maybe some who don't, or aren't able to use the ESA to get into a private school. So
here's what I would tell everybody. It empowers the parents, and what do we mean by that? We're turning back the monies to the parents and choosing where their children can go. So it puts pressure on those other schools to be able to start performing and start, instead of pushing people through. I was one of those kids that got pushed through. So just a small snippet in my life, I was placed into an ESL class, which is English as a second language, and I don't even speak Spanish. But I am Latino, right? I did have some learning disabilities. When I graduated high school and went to United States Army, when I took a reading comprehension exam, I scored a 4th grade reading level. My sergeant thought I was playing games, sent me back, and I scored the same. That's the reality of it. Did that stop me? No, I got a college degree. I pushed myself, but I get it. Not everybody is like me. But I really believe that it's gonna force all education levels, from charter, private to public schools, to really start performing at higher levels, where no kids are left behind.
And really require and put the pressure on schools to start being more responsive to the parents that are in those schools, right?
Absolutely. I think it'll start allowing the education system to start paying attention. You look at HISD, just got taken over by the state of Texas. They had 2,300 administrators that got removed, right? If you think about that, you would think that because the top has been removed, that all craziness would happen in the schools. But the reality of it, it didn't. School opened up. Kids are learning. So what does that say? And if we get in there and we start really pushing this higher education, and I'm not talking about college higher education, I'm just talking about higher education performing on at least grade level. Let's just start there.
Right.
If we can just get kids to grade level, we could really start thriving in the state of Texas.
So just in general, what do you think this would mean, for the community, for the kids there? Applying to the private school is sometimes seen as, well, that's too daunting for me, or that's not something, I don't want to go through a bunch of spreadsheets and have to evaluate that every year. I mean, do you think parents will be able to take that on?
I do. I think, though, in our community, they would have to be walked through a whole lot of this, but that's fine. We have the patience and the resources and the capabilities of making sure that they know exactly what's going on, how to do it. I mean, if we look at the charter schools, and charter schools are great as well, but let's say we're able to hold, 300, 400 kids in our private school, and really start honing in on because we get to pick the curriculum at that point, right?
Right.
And if we choose a higher curriculum with really great teachers, then we are really shaping and transforming minds to really thrive in our community. And this affects my community directly.
So, and the last question I have is, thank you so much for being here again. We're talking with Richard Vega from Houston, a pastor down there, who's got kids in the system and really cares about these issues. But you're taking your time, and effort and money and treasure and coming up here to make your case for these issues. This is as close as Texas has ever been in 30 years to actually passing anything remotely close to school choice. But if it doesn't get done this session, do you think you'll be back up here? And the governor said, the thing is, the clock never runs out. When you're the governor, I can keep calling quarter after quarter, using his sports analogy. Will you be back up here? I mean, is this different because we're not talking about just normal legislative issues like budget and taxes and stuff? Does it mean something different for you that we're talking about the future of Texas and our kids?
I will definitely be back up here. So just this trip alone, I brought 50 people with me. So
do you want to point at the camera and tell your member, hey, I'll be right back?
I will definitely be here. I'm not going away. I brought 50 people with me. Next time, I'll bring 100. I am serious about this bill. And, I want to meet with other legislators within my community and let them know we're serious. Some of them are kind of on the fence, but here's what I'll tell you. We have 800 families that come on our property every single day that have school choice. We want this. This shouldn't even be, I don't even know why we're arguing this. This should be for every Texan in this state.
Thank you. That's fantastic. It's great to hear the passion for this and such, some unwavering support and motivation to get this done. Richard, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking this time here to be on our program and sharing your message. Thank you for doing this, and we'll be right back with our next guest.
The Hard Country is a rough Spanish translation for the Trans-Pecos region known as the Despoblado. I'm Joshua Trevino with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, joined by my colleague, Melissa Ford Maldonado.
On the Hard Country podcast, we discuss present-day Mexican-American relations with a nod to the two countries' rich histories.
We cover everything from Mexican politics to the border to the cartels and more.
Tap our logo to subscribe wherever you watch or listen to podcasts.
And welcome back to The Right Idea, where we're discussing the new special session and the creation of education savings accounts. And we're having folks come in and tell their stories from all different parts of Texas as to why they're here and why they're having their voice known and meeting with their members and all of that. And, of course, our next guest is Pastor Jerry Davis from Kingwood. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you to the Texas Public Policy Foundation.
Absolutely. Well, without you guys telling your stories, we would really have nothing to talk about. So, so let's get into that. I want to talk about your story, because you do run a school down there in the Kingwood area.
Yes.
But it's not that you didn't just do this out of nowhere. That you do have some experience in your family with education. So take us a little bit into kind of why you decided to start your own school, and kind of how all of that formed.
Most pastors are reluctant to start schools because they're such a costly burden. They're not something that creates income that you can do other ministry with. They're something that you have to be dedicated and called to God God to be able to see this as an extension of your children's ministry, and we're going to do it at cost. Well, like most pastors, we just didn't have the funds to do that. But then my daughters, who I raised, who went to private Christian school, then became public school teachers themselves.
Okay.
And after years of teaching in the public schools, they started having children. When they started having children, who are my grandchildren, they came to me, Pastor, Dad, please, we have got to start a private Christian school. We don't want to put our children in the schools that we've been teaching in. And that's not because we don't love the public schools. We do. And we minister in public schools, and they saw it as a ministry themselves.
Yeah.
But for their own children, they wanted discipleship for their children. They wanted their kids to be raised without the peer pressure and without the moral failures of the public schools.
So I was going to get into that, because obviously they don't, they're coming at it from a different angle. It's not that they would say, well, I'm a terrible teacher, or that we have terrible teachers. There's a little bit of a different angle about why parents would choose a school more like yours, and what would be some of those reasons?
Well, my daughters as teachers were literally being threatened, there were times where the schools would take the sides of the students, and there were literally gangs in this school, and so they got to taste and see what it was like, and even that some of the teachers unions wouldn't back them, and when it came to especially anything that had to do with faith, and so they determined that that was the number one importance. As Proverbs 22 says, that we're to train a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he will not depart from it, and that directive from God came to parents. It didn't go to educational systems. It didn't go to teachers unions, and it didn't come from the government. It was directed toward parents. So parent empowerment has to be at the basis of any school education.
Yeah, I want to hit that, because that's really the point here, is that that in some way or another, whether it's the quality of the education or the safety of the child or what have you, the parent doesn't feel like the system was being responsive to their needs, and they're looking for something else. And so you and your lovely daughters decide to take this big jump, it sounds like, into trying to finance and create a new school. Now, tell us a little bit about how that started and kind of where you're at now. How big is your school? How does it operate, and how does it work?
We actually had several public school teachers in the church who came, and we kind of formed a narrative as to what this should look like and how it would foundationally operate so that it would be the best academics possible. And we've done so. We have kids that are graduating as software engineers. We have kids that are graduating with their degrees already. We have we work with the colleges, so they're graduating as educators, teachers. We have them going into nursing. So it's a rounded way of being able to insulate them from the horrors of the experience that many kids would get, and the bullying and all those things, and being able to get truly educated by people that care about their soul, their spirit, and their mind, and their academics being top quality.
This sounds like a great school, and it's probably in very high demand. So what are you charging, like $30,000-$40,000 a year for your private school tuition?
It's $600 a month in our school. Now, that doesn't meet the expenses. That's one of the things that many times is the concern, because that doesn't meet the expenses. In the church and ministry campus, we help underwrite the facilities. There's no charge for all of those. And so it is a cost factor, but the difference that I'm seeing that is made in this bill that is up right now for passage, or being prepared for passage, thanks to the governor, thanks to the lieutenant governor, thanks to Senator Creighton, who is my personal senator. We are appreciative of the fact that they are pushing for this, and there's just no way that we can let this go without passing the legislation to empower the parents and to let the kids have the kind of education that their parents choose.
And this bill, and again, I'm the comms guy, so I don't do a lot of math and policy here, but by my own, public school education math, I think that the $8,000 in the ESA would cover the cost.
The $8,000 would cover the cost of tuition in our school. It surely would.
Now, are you ready? I mean, if if folks are all of a sudden, have access to being able to control the money that's used to educate their child, now they're looking at your church or your school in order for a better opportunity. Are you able to handle that kind of influx?
So there's two things that we're prepared to do. Number one, we can double our capacity immediately. We know that we can do that. Number two, we're ready to train other churches and pastors who haven't been able to do this type of a school or ministry. We're ready to train them. We're ready to have seminars, whatever it takes to educate them on how they can do this and to take away all the fears or the lack of knowledge that they have in those those areas so that their kids can be number one in academics and number one in their spiritual life.
So I was just going to hit those because these are the two, you be ready for them because these are the two, biggest talking points that the opponents of school choice use here is that, well, your school must be unaccountable. You have no academic accountability because you don't take the STAR test. Are you laughing already?
Well, the reason I'm laughing...
Because you can hear the parents in your head already.
Yeah, the number one accountability factor that we have are the parents.
Yeah.
Parents, pastors are used to that. If people don't agree with what's going on in church, they leave. They'll let you know.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
So that's parents are the ones who really rule. If they don't like something that's being done or the way it's being taught, of course we engage with parents all the time. We're very actively involved with our parents, and we let them know what's going on, why we're headed a certain direction, why we're teaching a certain thing, and they can go over all of that with us. That's something that they can have direct accountability immediately with us.
But obviously, you're selling yourselves as high academic education quality, academic quality. But so, are you comparing yourselves to other schools, or is there other national tests or academic evaluations that you're looking at, and that way, or at least for prospective parents, you're saying, hey, look, here's how we demonstrate that we actually are getting a really good education for our kids.
Well, we're determined to be the best that we can possibly be, and so yes, we compare ourselves with those schools, other qualifiers, and when we see our students are doing, and the parents tell us, believe me, they tell y'all are doing much better at educating our kids than they were being educated before. So we have immediate feedback. But yes, we are very concerned because we deal with the college. We have a program where our students can, especially once they start getting high school age, they can start going to college right away. And a lot of our students are graduating already at the same time that they're graduating high school. They're graduating with their associate's degrees or college under the belt, and that's an intentional thing that we're doing.
So those degrees that they're getting and then earning college credit and things like that while they're in school definitely are, at least for people who are wanting some sort of like quantifiable proof that these schools are of a higher standard or higher. That's the kind of thing that they can look at as well. All right. Well, we have a couple minutes left. Just have one kind of question. Just we're talking to Pastor Jerry Davis here out of Kingwood, who's coming to town to make his voice known, to talk about his experience and talk to his legislators. What would this mean for your community? I mean, in addition to the folks in your church, I'm sure you're aware of things obviously going on around your community as well, and kind of the quality of the schools and all of that. Do you think you would see like a big sea change in terms of like the quality of education, or how do you think this would really affect those areas?
Anytime there's competition, the quality rises. So regardless of what you're competing in, if it's business or if it's in politics or whatever, when you have competition, it gets better. What we'd immediately see is we have parents that come in our offices and sit down in tears every day telling us we want our kids to do better. They're not learning well enough in the schools that we're able to go to, and we want to switch to your school, and they tell us why we can't afford it. And they're in tears. We're in tears because we want to do this job for them. We want to do what's best for the children, and the best thing is for the children and for our community is to be able to offer a choice. And if the parents are happy with their public school, and there's a lot of wonderful public schools, we have a lot of wonderful public school teachers that we're connected to. So there are good public schools, and any parent that wants to choose those public schools to be the foundation of their children's education, they can do it. And then if they want to choose by their own choice, if they want to choose to either homeschool their child or put them in a private Christian institution or a different institution that they prefer, that's their choice. This is America. Let them choose. And when they get to choose, that empowers the entire community. The community will do better. Every phase of the community, every race, color, and creed, every economic level will rise because we choose to do this.
Very, very well said, and a great note to end on with Pastor Jerry Davis. We really appreciate you being here. All right, and we'll be back just after this.
I'm Sherry Sylvester, host of the 9th in Congress podcast. I've been working at the nexus of politics and public policy my entire career. On 9th in Congress, I'll be talking about my journey from the progressive left to the conservative right and my past 2 decades in the Texas Capitol with key policy and political players who have made our state a conservative model for the world. Subscribe now, wherever you get your podcasts.
and welcome back to The Right Idea. Now I'm with Pastor Alexa Arcila, who is from the Houston area, and you have a church down there as well. You don't run a private school or you don't have a public school, but you do have kids in the public school system, and so you get to see firsthand kind of what they're experiencing. Could you talk to us a little bit about their experience and kind of what your, frankly, experience is with the public schools down there?
Right. Well, I was, talking about my community, the Hispanic community. We lack of opportunities, we underserved community. So having the school choice pass will give us the opportunity to have good education, private education, Christian education. I'm a pastor. I go for Christian education. My kids were in a Christian education, and I saw the difference, between the material they're reading, the quality, the intensity. So, I'm so blessed that I got the opportunity to get my kids into Christian school. Now they're in a public school. But if you just give me the chance to choose, I will go for private school.
So what is, if there are, I don't know, we talked a lot about inappropriate materials in the school, libraries, things like that. But even just the quality of the education, if you've been through school, you have degrees, like whether or not your child is receiving the level of education they should be getting. When you have concerns like that, legitimate concerns, what happens when you engage with the school system?
Well, one thing is going on right now in the Houston area, and is how we, the Hispanic community, are being uninformed, I think, because they show us the picture that libraries are going to be empty and they're going to use the libraries as detention centers. So my community is very concerned about, because when they show up back in the school, they say, we have no books right now in the library. So now it's a detention center. So where are the books? And we said, the books are coming back. But why they took out the books? Because the material, you say, indoctrination. I'm a pastor.
Yeah.
I want my kids to know the truth about God, the design God, how God created them to be, know how some people are trying to convince them that they can choose if they're boy or girl. So as a pastor, as a leader in the community, for me, it's so important that they need to grow. They made, the decision, probably in the future. I pray God, they understand that they were created man or girl.
Sure.
But having a 7-year-old boy reading a book or watching a book with graphic material about kissing other kid, the same sex, it's just indoctrination. They're doing it.
And it's one thing to say, look, those types of that subject matter and material is what we do at home. It's what we talk about at home. It's the values that I want to get them at home. What I don't want is something at the school which is contradicting that. Just get it out. Like whatever, I just don't want that to be the place where they're having, that discussion with another adult without my consent, much less my knowledge, right? I want academics in those areas. I want reading, writing, and especially at 7 years old. It's pretty remarkable that has taken place there. And so a lot of people would look at that and say, well, if you don't like the public schools, then just take them to the private school. Do whatever you want. How would that work in your community? I mean, are there folks there who could just turn around and start cutting a check for private schools?
I'll take them. The thing is about money. But with this school choice, we're going to get the resources we need to take them into private school. I'm advocating for Christian education. I want my kids to have in the school the same values I have in the house, at home, and in church.
But there's not a lot of people in your community that could just turn around and start paying for private
we
education.
underserved community. We have a low-income families. The Hispanics are one of the biggest community to be benefit from this. If you see how many Hispanics are part of the private education or Christian education, it's not many. It's few, because, one normal Hispanic mom, we have a lot of single moms, first of all. Secondly, we have a very hardworking people. We have 2 jobs, 3 jobs to pay for just the rent and the bills. So it's impossible for a Hispanic mom, single mom, to pay for a private school.
Right.
So now we have some money. I mean, if this...
And they can't, obviously, if without money to go to private school, they obviously can't move to, like, the other areas of town and uproot their entire life and go move into a much bigger house somewhere in a different neighborhood. So would you say, because this is, again, one of the big criticisms, that, we have school choice in Texas. You can move to another neighborhood or a better school, or you can send your kid, or homeschool. Like, how does somebody with 3 jobs...
Oh, no, we cannot be homeschooled. That's why you don't have many Hispanics doing homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
We can. I mean, my community, we need to work. We construction people, we in the kitchen, we serving the tables. Mm-hmm. My community is the most hardworking community you can ever see in the United States. Mm-hmm. We make in this nation. Our kids are the future of this nation, and we need good education. We need opportunities. So this is going to give a lot of opportunities to us.
Yeah.
And
real choice.
Yeah.
Right? You don't, like, people in your community, you're saying that you don't have these choices, the homeschool and the private education. So then the other big question is, the current bill that you're up there talking about to members has a $8,000 price tag that would give up to $8,000 to each family to take them to private school. A lot of people are saying that's not enough money. Do you think that's enough to cover some private education?
It's like, say, I have 8,000 and I have nothing. I take the 8,000. So it's a blessing anyway.
And of course, with ESAs, I mean, this is one of the biggest points between a voucher, is what they're calling it, versus ESAs. You can use it for other things like transportation, a specialized
books, I think, right?
Specialized tutoring too, and books. So if your child has a particular issue that they need some work on, whether it's reading or what have you, you can use it for specialized tutoring as well. So how would this, I mean, you're a leader in the community. I mean, you talk to folks, I'm not sure how big the church is, but you talk to lots of folks every week about kind of how they're doing and guiding them on the path. How would this change your community? I mean,
big time for Hispanic, I think.
And
I wish I could just say something in Spanish at the end.
Absolutely,
because, maybe we can get some Spanish audience. And I will say, I'm just praying for this to pass because I want my kids to go back to Christian education. And it's not just for me. I'm pastoring. Mm-hmm. I have many single moms. I know them. They in my heart. These kids are my kids, my spiritual kids. I want the best future, the best opportunity for them. I can afford, if I could, I have the money, I'll pay for them. That's why I say I'm going to go for education, because right there is the future, and we need to support these new kids because they're here. They're citizens, they're Americans. They need to know. They need to know the system. They need to know that America was founded with Christian values.
Mm-hmm. You sound passionate enough to start your own school. Would you potentially do that at some point?
Yeah, I'm praying to God that gave me the opportunity to get some, because it's not just about. I mean, education is key. Mm-hmm. We want to transform this nation. Let's get some education to people and to the Hispanic community. We need everything. We need opportunities. We need access. We need resources. Mm-hmm. And we kind of growing, We kind of 50% right now in Houston.
We've got some folks milling around this area, around the Capitol, who are small churches that have schools and things like that. Maybe we network a little bit and get things going and see how you might do that. But if you want to, I think this would be a great opportunity. If you either to me or to the camera, or if you would like to send a special message to your community, by all means, go right ahead.
Okay. Hola a todos, les habla Pastora Alexa Arcila de la ciudad de Houston. Es una gran oportunidad. Les pido oración por el School Choice, que nos va a dar la oportunidad de elegir la educación que queremos para nuestros hijos. Conozco muchas mujeres solteras, conozco muchos padres que escasamente pagan la renta, y les digo, es una oportunidad para darle una mejor educación a nuestros hijos. Oren, participen, entérense. Necesitamos conocimiento, necesitamos entender que es una oportunidad que Dios está enviando para darle la mejor educación posible a nuestros hijos. Les hablo a ustedes, la comunidad hispana, y les digo, no se dejen manipular, lean, averigüen, investiguen, hablen con sus pastores, pregúntenles, porque necesitamos activarnos en esta sociedad y darle a nuestros hijos las oportunidades que tal vez nosotros no pudimos. Así es que los invito, oren, apóyense, activémonos como comunidad, y les bendigo a todos. Thank you.
Pastor Alexa, I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. So that'll do it for the special edition of The Right Idea. I want to thank not just the public policy makers and the leaders over at the Capitol who are working diligently and working hard to make this a reality for 5 million school kids across the state, but also for the folks that aren't policymakers and the real leaders in their community who are taking their time and sacrificing a lot to be up here to make the case and to meet with their members to talk about this legislation and the real positives and the real benefits that would happen if we pass school choice legislation in Texas. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.